Okay, thank you very much for this. It was very, very interesting. And I have a question for Professor Kerber. And when we think of access to data and making companies give up their data in a way, it's always connected to dominance somehow. And what do you think about that? Because if we don't establish that there is no context of dominance in uh, self-driving cars, then how do we, how do we uh, create a solution for access to data? Because the way I see it, when you look at competition, in a way, can we think that regular cars and self-driving cars, do they compete or not? What is the market, and how do we apply a sort of an essential facility framework? I mean, maybe I get it wrong, so I would like your clarification on this. Thank you very much.
Okay, this is a very important question. I think I have two answers. So the first one is what I presented at the end. So you can also perhaps use in Germany this idea of dependency. Yeah, and perhaps this might also be an option in France. So you don't, in that case, you would not need dominance. Yeah, so all the service providers are dependent from the data of the car manufacturers for offering their services. Yeah, and therefore you would not need dominance. The second point is that you can also make an argument that on the aftermarkets and also complementary services, where the service providers are really need access to the in-vehicle data and access to the car, that the car manufacturers are dominant in regard to these aftermarkets. And so you can also use Article 102. And I have understood that there are case decisions in Germany and also I think in the European Union, where this has also been acknowledged already, that in these aftermarkets, especially from the car manufacturers, there might be, can use the dominance concept also.
There's another question there.
Just a quick question to Professor Kerber. I have to say I was not particularly persuaded by the market failures that you have identified in this example. It seems that if you're right in this case, then almost every product in the market suffers from market failure. After all, we have numerous car manufacturers that are competing, and although consumers don't understand exactly what are the inner works of that system of data, they also don't understand how engines work, and they don't understand how safety of cars work. But we think that, by and large, other than in extreme situations, you don't have to take away the decision from car manufacturers how to build engines and safety devices. In fact, they usually go beyond what is the minimum standards necessary. So I don't. Furthermore, the pace of technological change seems to me to be fairly rapid and rampant in many products that have closed systems. Take, for example, smartphones. We have new models every year. With car manufacturers, new models every few years. It doesn't seem that while people may be locked into a particular system that they chose to, that the switching costs are so enormous to eliminate the forces of competition. So in that sense, I would, if you want to clarify, why is this worse than any other context that we see in?
You are entirely right that this question has been asked. It's exactly a question about systems competition. And therefore, it's very necessary to make a specific argument, why this is a special problem here in regard to cars. The point is, car is a durable product, and you are buying it, and it's about a lifetime of, 15 years or something like that. And you are really locked into this car for this whole time. You have, if you're buying right now a connected car, you have no idea what kind of services are offered in this car in 3-5 years, but you're still locked into the car. So if you are dependent on this car manufacturer, a consumer cannot assess this. This is different from if you are buying a watch or something. You might also have to repair it, but this is a very different situation. But I think this is also the reason. If we would not have such a kind of a problem, then also the very old tradition, the regulation about inter-diaper-proof regulation would not be necessary. So we have, and this, I think we have this also in the US to some extent. I think you have state legislation about right to repair, so that there are independent repair and maintenance services, and that this is the competition on these aftermarket services is protected, and we do not rely only on systems competition. So otherwise, we would also not need this mandatory access to technical information that we have for, I think, 30 years also in Europe already for repair and maintenance services. But you are entirely right that this is, from an economic perspective, I think the most important question to ask: what about competition among vehicle manufacturers? Perhaps I might add one point which I have not here mentioned is you can also ask whether the extended vehicle concept, which is really proposed by the Association of European car manufacturers as a general solution, in which they also make an ISO standardization, so they have a standardization process, whether this is in itself a collusive agreement. And therefore, there is not really competition about technology and about the governance issues here. Yeah, this is also a thing we should investigate whether this is the case or not. Perhaps it's also different really in the US. I would be very curious about that.
Thank you, Wolfgang. And,
I just read in the newspaper today that in UK, the Uber drivers have asked Uber to display their data for them to have and to get access to their driving data. And it's interesting that you feel like it's not this is not the car manufacturer actually, but the people in charge of the operating system or the information system, and there is a claim of those drivers to get access to the data. So here you see, and for the obsolescence also we have a huge problem here. If you want to keep pace with innovation, it's your choice, but we are in a sustainable. We try to get to a sustainable environment, which means that maybe I will not have the possibility or the willingness to buy the new version of the Apple phone and keep my old iPhone. But if I don't have access to the information, then I cannot do that.
Thank you. Sorry for sorry, because we are going to run to the conclusion of this conference, and I think we can talk about more things than inclusion and many things about the last question. But we are now a conclusion of Jean-Gabriel Ganassia, professor of computer science in Université Pierre et Marie Curie, president of the ethical committee, I think. So there is some question in the question of CNRS on fairness, justice, and data, because everyone can buy Mercedes, I think.